always get a kick out of seeing my exuberant fans as they jump in anticipation of Wednesday Night Live, coming to you from Pocatello, Idaho, in the beautiful Portneuf Valley. And if you haven't seen this place, you need to see it to believe it. It's a beautiful place to be. I'm Ralph Lillig, your host for Wednesday Night Live, and welcome to the program. As I do every week at this time, I want to tell you about Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center, and I want to ask you to please call them. The area code in Idaho is 208. Their number is 478-HOPE, H-O-P-E, 478-HOPE. And Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center is everything that Planned Parenthood is not. Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center is about life. It's about family. It's about the dignity of mankind. And they are about needing your help. They're a small organization. They operate on a very limited budget. They don't get the millions and millions that Planned Parenthood does. I was reading an article today about Planned Parenthood. Last year, I think it was, they got over 478 million of our American tax dollars to teach sexualization to our preschool kids and to school kids. They are, well, anyway, not to beat that, 478-HOPE. Please call them, see what you can do to help them financially, materially, whatever you can do. They need your help, they appreciate your help, and some mother, and maybe as an yet unborn child, will thank you for that. Well, we have a busy evening ahead of us. I want to tell you a little bit about an event that's coming up this Friday from 6 p.m. till 8:30 p.m. I'm going to read it right from the flyer, and then we'll get into it a little more. It says, now this get-together is called Principles of Freedom, Concert and Rally, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's at Marydell Park, 5740 South 5th Avenue. That's out by the Bannock County Sheriff's. Great location. I'm not sure about the neighborhood, but great location for this or any other kind of event. I'm going to just read it from the flyer. It says, friends, join us in a celebration of liberty. Join us in the fight to restore principles of constitutional freedom for our country and for our Idaho. April 11th, 2014, that's this Friday, at Marydell Park, 5740 South 5th Avenue. And it says, for your enjoyment and inspiration, the following will be provided. A patriotic concert. And we're going to introduce you to the concert master in a moment. Candidate booths, where there are going to be candidates for office that are going to have booths. They can give you information, answer questions for you about their candidacy. And then it says, try your hand at the Combat Grenade Challenge. Each time your wiffle grenade hits its mark, you will win a raffle ticket for the items, and I'll tell you about those items. Keep in mind that your objective will be a moving target that has defeated all comers, including police, SWAT, and the military. So it says, do you have what it takes? Well, I'm going to give it a try and see if I have. Additional raffle tickets may be purchased at 2 for the price of 1 for the duration of the rally, and tickets are $10 a piece, or 2 for $10. And then when the rally ends, the price will rise. When the rally ends, the price will rise to $10 per ticket. All right, here's some raffle items that are going to be. Number one, I wish I had a big blow-up picture to show you. The first is a Ruger SR9C semi-automatic pistol. This is a perfect pistol. I'm glad I don't have to say pickled perfect pistol or something. Perfect pistol for self-defense and concealed carry. The Ruger is chambered in the powerful 9mm Luger. The ticket for this pistol will be drawn immediately following the close of the primary polls on May 20, 2014. The winner's name will be posted on a site that we will give you, and you will get that at the rally also. Please note that you must be legally eligible to own a handgun to win this item. And then Lance Earl, who is a candidate for 28B, I believe it is, legislative seat 28B. He's contesting Kelly Packer for her seat. Lance Earl will raffle hundreds of dollars of advanced firearms training for 4 lucky winners. Each winner may choose between the basic pistol course or the Dragon Slayer course, which is a special defense course just for the ladies. You must be present to win. Winning tickets will be placed back into the pot for the pistol raffle. And then Big D's Gun Shop. And you know, if you haven't met your hunting needs, or if you've been looking around, maybe you just got your concealed carry or something like that, I would urge you to go see Joe or Big Don. You can't miss Big Don. He's a big guy. Down at Big D's Gun Shop down in North Main. Where was I? Lost my place here. Big D's Gun Shop has donated 2 bricks of hard-to-find 22 long rifle rounds. You must be present to win. Winning tickets will go back into the pot for the pistol raffle. If you've tried to get 22 long rifle rounds for a while, you know that they're scarce as hen's teeth. So 2 bricks, that's, I forget how many is a brick, 100 maybe, but 500. Okay, all right. So most important of all is the fact that your presence at this rally will place you squarely on the side of truth and liberty. It will place you in a league with Jefferson, Madison, Washington, and every true patriot that followed. Please be in attendance and bring your friends. So that's this Friday, and I'm very fortunate to have as my guest the man who's putting this together, and you're probably going to recognize his name and the face when you see him. I'm holding it till the last moment, get the full measure of surprise. He has a group of his own. He writes as well as sings and plays freedom, help me here, patriotic music. There we go. All right.
Okay.
So with that, and after fumbling the introduction, it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome to our show, Ron Clayson. Ron,
hello.
Thank you so much for being here, especially after I flubbed it. But at least I got your name right. I didn't forget it.
You did. And actually, you were right. It is freedom music. I prefer to call it freedom music as opposed to patriotic. And so to me, what freedom music includes is a combination of patriotic, protest, and praise music, all kind of mixed into one. And that's quite a combination to get into a single song, by the way.
That is, and you have to hear it. If you haven't heard Ron playing with his group, it's amazing how he incorporates these three together.
And patriotic, certainly from the point of view that we love the country, we believe America is good, the founding principles are good, free enterprise system is good, personal responsibility is good. So we're espousing all of these good things in the songs. But I also believe that, especially in today's world, we gotta pay attention to the problems that are going on also, and so that's where the protest aspect comes in. And so I really feel like the music is unique from that perspective, and it's kind of like a parent who all they ever do is praise their child. You end up with a brat.
Yeah, sometimes you have to spank them, or at least chastise them.
Yeah, and so there's those two aspects in the song, and praise is included because certainly we need God as part of the solution, and He's key, and so that's how all three of those are meshed together.
And if you're from our generation, well, I'm older than Ron is. If you're from my generation, back in the '60s, late '50s, early '60s. Protest songs were all the rage with Mary, Pete and Paul, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Peter, Paul, and Mary. My goodness, how quickly we forget. Peter, Paul, and Mary. They did a form of protest songs, and at the time they were considered quite progressive. They were very liberal, but they were of that John Kennedy type of liberalism that today would be considered conservative, practically, next to the Obamianists and what we've been seeing there. But when you hear Ron's songs, they really do measure all three of those things in there. They're unique. You're going to enjoy this. Now tell us what else is going on out there, Ron.
Okay, I'm excited about the program, and Ralph knows this, but for the last, ever since I found out I was going to be chairing the program, I've been asking people, what do you see as the most important issue here in our country? What's our biggest problem? What do we need to pay attention to? And people would tell me. Some people would say, apathy was one that would come up. The place of God in society and in our government was another issue that came up quite a bit. Overregulation would come up quite a bit. States' rights came up quite a bit also. Political correctness came up. And so really this program is for you, because it's addressing the top issues that people were concerned about.
And all of these issues, of course, are current. You can all you have to do is turn on the television. Every one of them. Today I was watching television. I was watching the Attorney General of the United States basically getting snarky with a sitting U.S. congressman, and the sitting U.S. congressman, Larry, what's his name? Gohmert from Texas, Gohmert is a former judge. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have any background. He's kind of slow and methodical. He speaks like a good old Texas boy, but he's no fool. And it was interesting watching Eric Holder, not only his defiance, but his arrogance when he was speaking to this congressman. And the congressman was trying to get to the bottom of various issues. And at one point, Gohmert made a comment that I guess you could consider it was a little bit of a slight. Depends on how sensitive you are at the moment. But he said something about, well, the Attorney General really doesn't care about this issue or something like that. And Eric Holder actually said, wait a minute, buddy, hold on. Like he was talking to a guy on the street corner or something. And I was astonished that the Attorney General of the United States, who has made it very clear that he doesn't play by any rules but his own, which basically are Obama's. And so going back to the point was that a lot of people are upset. They want answers. They want to know what's going on. And what better place than at a patriotic rally where we can have a little protest, have a little God,
Thank you.
have a little, just, you know, all of those things that fit our American way of life. Now we're going to have some booths set up out there, is that correct?
Yes, there'll be some booths. One of them that I'm excited about is the National Center for Constitutional Studies. One of the topics, by the way, is constitutional illiteracy among most of the citizens of our country. And so one of the booths that will be there will be the National Center for Constitutional Studies, and they have plenty of materials for a person to be able to learn about the Constitution in an interesting way. And that's actually kind of one of my side things. I've been moderating constitutional study groups using their materials for about 3 years.
Yes, for several years.
And I had not read the Constitution, I'm ashamed to say, beginning to end until I started that class. So don't feel bad if you're in that situation. We all have to start somewhere, but it's a life-changing experience once you start understanding it.
It is, and I find myself, I keep this on the desk here when I have the show. This is a pocket Constitution, and there's a place on the back where I can sign it, making me a signator of the Declaration or the Constitution of the United States. And I look at this in absolute wonder when I read this. It's so brief, it's so short and succinct and to the point, and it covers everything that we feel from our understanding that we are given by God the privilege of this country and the things we have, and then how to do it. I mean, it's so complete in this little thing. Now, if you wanted to be, you know, if you want to go into a scholarly work, sure, you can go into the federal papers, and there are so many things you can do. But when it gets down to it, if we have people in office who actually believe in it, that's all they need to do. Is this little booklet. There's so much in there. And I took the class, Ron and I took the class at the same time. We took it from somebody else. And like you, I was amazed at how much I had either forgotten. There was a time, you know, here again, I'm older than Ron is, but I remember well when I was a kid that they used to teach us the Constitution. Not in depth. They taught us the salient points of it and an overview of it. None of us would leave there as constitutional scholars. But with few exceptions, it's hardly taught. And then when it is, it seems to be getting so distorted and so twisted that you wonder if it's the same as this little booklet right here.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be an exciting booth to have there.
I had while we're on the Constitution, I had an interesting experience here about a week ago. I was talking with one of our state legislators, and I'm not going to mention any names here, but I had invited this person to come and sit in on our classes. And you know, the comment was, the person said, you know, I love the Constitution, you know, as I can remember how much I enjoyed that class in high school. And I thought, what? You know, you can remember it from high school. You know, that's kind of like a doctor saying, well, you know, I really enjoyed my physiology and anatomy in, you know, from my high school classes. You know, and think about it, you know, what's the most important thing for a legislator to know when you're dealing with issues of freedom and responsibility? You know, what freedoms, what responsibilities to leave in, what ones to take out. You know, carry the doctor analogy. You know, if your doctor studied his anatomy in high school, you know, how much are you going to trust that person to know what things to leave in and what things to take out if they haven't read it since.
Yeah. Well, let's see, he's got 2 lungs. Well, he doesn't need them both, does he?
Yeah.
That's just taking up room in there. Yeah.
So, I mean, constitutional illiteracy is huge. I mean, it's something that, as a society, we need to deal with.
Now, the program, did I have it right? It starts at 6 p.m.?
The booths are going to be there'll be booths from 6 until 7.
Okay.
And that'll be National Center for, anyway, them. Freedom First Society will have one. There's another major group that's on the fringes that I believe will be there. And candidates, there'll be some candidates with booths there as well. And so it will be an educational and informative time period to meet with people, and then the program itself will have a lot of meat to it, but yet it'll be done in a fun and entertaining way.
And you're putting it on, and I've had the pleasure of seeing you and your group many times, so I know that'll be fun. And keep in mind, and I hope I'm not speaking out of school here, obviously from what we just been talking about, this is basically a conservative event. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you're planning to protest somebody or you have something, you know, that's a wild hair up your nose or whatever it is, this probably isn't the place for it, because we're going to be meeting with people pretty much who are like-minded. Perhaps they don't get out very often to various rallies or conservative events, however you want to characterize it. But this is going to be, to use a common phrase these days with the liberals, a teaching moment. They're going to be, and a number of booths, and it's not just these, but a number of booths and people to talk to, speakers. This is going to be really a building event for somebody, and it's family friendly.
Yes.
So you don't have to leave the kids at home and say, "Oh, I'm going to one of those rallies." You won't have anybody down there. You're not going to get a contact high from the smoke or anything. This is a family friendly event, and if you really are unhappy with God, family, and country, then it may not be for you. But if you really think we've been blessed and that there's things that we can learn to strengthen our country, to help us out of this morass we're in now, this would be an ideal place to go.
Okay. Yes, that's true.
So, so from 6 to 7 is booths, and then
6 to 7 are booths, and then 7 o'clock till probably, I'm estimating 8:30 is how long the program will last. The program will be a mix of small speeches and skits. Actually, there'll be some comedy. There'll be maybe even some emotional moments. I believe there'll be some foot stomping and clapping in some of the music, and everything in between. So I keep thinking back here of how the protest songs of the 60s and 70s changed America. It's our turn. Let's give it a shot.
Excellent. Well, Ron, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to come down here.
Thank you.
And
for having me.
If you haven't heard Ron and his group, you have to do this. Do you have any CDs or anything that you sell?
We've got them that, and I kind of hold back a little bit. We've been remaking ourselves since we made our first CD, and actually I've got 2 CDs, but we've been remaking ourselves, and so with the new Ron Clayson and Rapid Creek bands, we don't have any yet.
Okay, so you're a work in progress.
We're a work in progress.
Okay. Well, don't let that prevent you from coming out and enjoying it live.
You will enjoy it.
You will. All right, Ron. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
Ralph.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
All right. Well, that if you haven't been to a freedom rally, or however you want to say this, in the past, do yourselves a favor, do you and your family a favor, and go to this. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. I really don't know what else to say to encourage you. It's just it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, the weather is wonderful. So, and it's at Merridale Park. Merridale Park has an indoor facility and a beautiful, beautiful grounds around it. So it's just a great setting for this. So please do yourself and your family, and bring some friends. Don't just stop with yourselves. Bring some other people with you, and come out and enjoy that. That's this Friday, and be there at 6 o'clock or as soon as you can get in there. And don't forget about this raffle for this Ruger. This is a beauty. 9mm is a very popular round. Well, all right. Let's. I was driving somewhere yesterday or the day before, and I saw a state trooper had a car pulled over, and it came to my mind. Sometimes my mind works off in oddball ways, as you have learned in watching this program. I got to thinking about my old pal, the Trunk Monkey, and I remembered we have this DVD for that. Josh, can we show that? All right, here probably is what not to do if you get stopped by the police.
Fabulous. How
Ma'am?
about if we don't give us a ticket today and just a warning?
License and registration.
Okay.
This your monkey?
The Truck Monkey, a revolutionary idea you'll only find at Suburban Auto Group.
Every car should have a trunk monkey, but it may not be the time to push that button. So I know, and obviously this didn't happen, but this thing popped into my mind. And I thought, you know what? I have this. I've got to put a little relief out there. We have a lot to talk about tonight. I got a very interesting piece of mail today. Before I go to that, it was interesting to me, and I hope you'll find it interesting. Have you? I know you have. Have you been getting these candidate cards? You know, it's political season. There are a lot of different names for it. It's political season. And the one that is just astonishing, it's humorous in a dark comedy kind of way. The one that's really astonishing to me is Mike Simpson's campaign. It has been an attack campaign from day one. Well, I guess it started out as an oblique attack campaign. It has become really vicious. Mike Simpson, he's been in the Senate, in the Congress now, District 2 Congress for 16 years. It's time to put him out to pasture. It's time to pass him on. And if you've seen the things he's doing, he's going after Brian Smith. Brian Smith is an attorney, lives in Idaho Falls. Good guy. I have a great deal of admiration and respect for him. Great family. He is not a personal injury lawyer, but it's interesting to see the way Mike Simpson and his campaign. Now remember, Big Mike has lots of bucks to spend, and he has the establishment Republicans behind him. They are pulling out all the stops, and we're still a month away from the election. You know, the election is not until the primary is not until May 20th. This is the first time since I've been here that I've seen Simpson. I don't know if you'd say running scared. I think maybe he's probably too arrogant for that, but he's running, and he's man, he is throwing the mud. And Brian Smith's campaign it's interesting. It hasn't been Brian Smith or his campaign. It's been the Club for Growth. Club for Growth, as you know, they're a big organization. They don't give money to anybody, but if they endorse you, that's like money in the bank. And the Club for Growth has been paying for these ads. As far as I know, I've seen one that Brian Smith has paid for himself, and I'm sure you'll see more. But that's how strongly the Club for Growth, a very well-recognized conservative organization, big bona fides, and they like Brian Smith, and they're backing his play. And he's finally, it was interesting to me to see how Simpson is doing his darndest to link Brian Smith. Let's see if it's on this one. He's linking him to everything sleazy that you and I as conservatives would consider, you know, like Pelosi. Yeah. Well, Pelosi's kind of sleazy to a conservative, you know. And Harry Reid, the Simpson campaign is doing their utmost to make Brian Smith look like a real bad guy. But the two things that just are humorous but ironic. There was a time probably when Mike Simpson was a conservative. Maybe he just got too full of himself and he forgot about what he used to be, and he's long since past that. When he voted for the $1 trillion bailout, a little under a trillion, when he voted to fund Acorn, do I need to remind you about Acorn? When he voted to the cash for clunkers and another number of things, this was not conservative ideology as I understand it. I might be a little bit too right-wing for him, I don't know. But anyway, he goes after Brian Smith, a really decent guy, in the sleaziest way. And I never, there was a time not too many years ago when I was pushing for Mike Simpson. I really believed in the guy. I've long since stopped believing in the guy, and I'm believing it's time for Mike Simpson to be put out to pasture and get somebody in there that actually has something to think about other than getting reelected. And so anyway, if you've been getting them, they're kind of a hoot. Every time you get a Mike Simpson mailer, think Brian Smith. Send Mr. Smith to Washington. And his Smith agenda, it's on the back of this card, repeal Obamacare entirely, not just this Band-Aid stuff that the establishment Republicans keep talking about. Permanent ban on wasteful earmark spending, and promote job growth through smaller government, not bigger. Big Mike has become a big government kind of guy, in spite of what he says. Big Mike wanted to give, was that White Cloud? He wants to give a portion of our Idaho lands to the government for a national monument or a national park. The government already owns over 60% of our state property. They don't own it. They control over 60% of our state property, and Simpson wants to give them more. And, well, anyway, I found that kind of ironic. I wanted to share that with you. Hope you, if you get it, like I said, when you see Simpson, think Brian Smith. Send Mr. Smith to Washington. Look up the old Jimmy Stewart movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and think about Mr. Smith, Brian Smith, and then so long, Mr. Simpson. And, well, all right. Now, next week, I'm going to give you a preview of a couple of things we have coming up, and then we'll get back to the program. Next week, if everything works out all right, if the Super 8 ball that says what your future is, or if the cards play out right, it looks like we're going to have Speaker of the House Lawrence Denny as our guest here, and I'm really looking forward to that. If you don't know Lawrence Denny, a solid guy. He's, as I said, he's Speaker of the House, very conservative. He just had a rally, or he's about to have a rally, I think it's passed, with the Duck Dynasty guys. The Duck Dynasty guys came out for a fundraiser for him in Boise, and I'm not a big Duck Dynasty fan. The program just, maybe it's too highbrow for me, I don't know, but I like the guys. The program is just, it just doesn't get to me. But I like the people, and they're good people, and they've got a wide, a lot of people like the Duck Dynasty guys, and they like Lawrence Denny. Lawrence Denny is running for Secretary of State, and if there's any place in this state where we need to have the utmost of integrity, honesty, as well as background knowing how to do that, it is certainly integrity. It is the Secretary of State. That basically is the guy who makes sure the elections are clean. There are other people running for that office. I hope you'll join us next week, same time, same station, as they say, and we will have Lawrence Denny as our guest, if everything works right, and we'll talk to him about his aspirations for us, the ideas he has to make Idaho more Idaho, and to keep our election process clean. And boy, that is a big one. And if any of you have lived in Bannock County as long as me, or a lot longer, I don't even have to draw you any pictures about the importance of integrity, because we've had our problems here. So that's next week. Then May 7th, it looks pretty good that we are going to have Russ Fulcher, Senator Russ Fulcher, who is a candidate for governor. We will have him on our program May 7th. Now I have to put a little note in here. If everything works all right, these men are both busy, they're traveling a lot, and things can happen at the last minute. But as it is right now, next week we'll have Lawrence Denny, and then I guess 2 weeks from then, or a week after that, we'll have Russ Fulcher. So be sure and tune in. And it's interesting, Lawrence Denny is running for Secretary of State. He's endorsed by Raul Labrador and Monty Pierce. These are two good guys, the guys that do our kind of work. And if they're backing him, he's somebody you need to. Now you can look up Lawrence Denny. I know I came back from Russ Fulcher. You can look up Lawrence Denny easily enough, just on your computer. Just go Denny for Idaho, DENNYFOR, not the number, DennyForIdaho.com. Look him up, look him over, and I think you'll be impressed. He's pretty super guy. We could certainly use him as Secretary of State. Other good news. Oklahoma has kicked out Common Core. I told you that this was in the works, and we were hoping that it was going to go that way. Oklahoma has seen the light, so that's 2 more states that have. There were either 4 or 5 states that originally said we don't want anything to do with it, and then Indiana opted out about a month ago. They said we don't need this. Oklahoma just last week, the governor signed the bill saying we don't want that kind of educating or whatever you want to call it in our state, and I believe Kansas is taking a look at it too. I would urge you to contact, now you're going to get nowhere if you contact Superintendent of Schools or of Public Education, Luna. He loves the thing. And the governor's going to back his play. He thinks he likes it. So you're not going to get anywhere there. So I would say talk to your local representatives, your legislator, your senators, and tell them, you know, look up the Common Core stuff. Don't just take my word for it. I've already told you I don't like it. I've given you some reason why. I'll give you more reasons as we move along. But you really need to get hold of your representatives and tell them, I don't want Common Core in our state. And there are 7 or 8 states now that have said we don't want it. And hopefully that's going to be like the old billiard ball, knocking down those pins. Common Core, sayonara to them. While we're on the subject of politics, there's so much happening right now. You know, we're only a little over a month away from the elections here, the primary elections, and I will give you what I think is a pretty solid slate. I'm not going to do it tonight, but I will provide you with the names of people that I think are pretty solid. They are all what I view as conservatives. As you know, I'm a constitutional Republican. I'm not an establishment Republican. I am a believer in the state's Republican platform. The establishment people are a little wishy-washy in those areas. So I'm going to give it to you from a very conservative constitutionalist perspective. If I tell you this is the guy I'm voting for, that's because I've checked them out and I believe in them. And you don't have to take my word for it. I'm just giving you some ideas. But we're pretty close to a need. We are at a need, basically, for almost a clean sweep, full housekeeping, full house cleaning, to get rid of a lot of unnecessary baggage in the establishment area. All right. There's going to be, between now and May 20th, you're going to be getting inundated. I told you about this last week, and we've been talking about it for a while. You're going to be getting inundated with stuff from the LGBT folks. They have formed a group here in town called Fair Pocatello. They brought on Jim Ruckty as their attorney, and I'm still not quite sure why they need an attorney. They have Brenda Stanley, used to be Brenda Baumgartner, Brenda Stanley, former anchorwoman from News 6, a very professional TV personality. She is going to be doing their publicity. As a matter of fact, they've been putting out a couple of trial runs on some PSAs. And I watched one of them today, and it was astonishing. I shouldn't say astonished. Maybe I should say disappointing. It was disappointing to me to watch them as they misrepresented what this whole non-discrimination ordinance is about. And one of the things they keep throwing over and over again, and I'm disappointed in Jim Ruckty. He's an attorney, and I would expect that he knows that the non-discrimination ordinance will keep you from being thrown out of your apartment in the middle of the night. Folks, nobody can throw any of us out of our apartment in the middle of the night legally. Doesn't matter if you're gay or not. If you're living in an apartment legally, you're paying the rent and you've signed the bills or whatever it is, signed the documents, they cannot arbitrarily throw you out. It doesn't matter if you're LGBT. It doesn't matter. People cannot throw you out of a restaurant because they don't like you. Not legally. Now they might throw you out because they don't like the way you dress. You know, if you show up in a biker outfit at a formal, you might be a little bit out of place. They might ask you to leave, and it wouldn't matter if you're LGBT or not. You don't fit. You don't belong there. And it's simple. A lot of it has to do with just good manners. Are you in a place where you know you wouldn't want to be liked or not? But this whole canard that they have on the left about having to protect this segment of society, the LGBTQ people, from the rest of us, to keep them from being thrown out of their job because they're gay. Are you kidding me? Then the other thing is they're continually linking the LGBT with the civil rights. And if that isn't an insult to the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King, I don't know what is. They don't even resemble each other. Yes, I'm aware that there are some black folks, African Americans, however, we're going to use whatever's the popular term today, who would link those, but they are few and far between. in the real world. There is no link between the civil rights movements of the 60s and the LGBTQ movement that has started way back in the early 70s. And we're going to make more information to you available on that as we go along. I want to remind you that remember that one of the hue and cry of the LGBTQ is that they need protection from us, whatever that means. Well, I wonder who needs protection from whom. I have another DVD I'd like you to take a look at. Now, you remember last week and the year before, we looked at Brunel Stutzman, a florist in, I think it's Portland, who, as a last moment kind of thing, declined to make a floral arrangement for a same-gender marriage. And the fellow who asked for it had been a customer of hers for 14 years, whom she dearly loved. And she knew that he was in a same-gender relationship. She knew what his sexual agenda was. That was never an issue for them. But it did become an issue for her when he wanted flowers, for her to do flowers for his wedding. And as a Christian lady, she said, I can't do that. Well, so you know the rest of the story. We talked about that. We're going to talk about it again before the election. Well, here's another one. Did you see last week this fellow, his name is Ike, if I get it correct. He is, I think he was one of the co-founders, and he was the CEO of Mozilla, the Firefox, where you go to to Google to look up stuff on the internet. It's one of the, I forget what they call them, but it carries your information. One of the founders, a very wealthy man, very successful man, he was kicked out of the company because he supported Proposition 8 back in Los Angeles I think it was in 2008, which was a refutation by the people of California to drop this whole non-discrimination ordinance malarkey. It was passed by the people. It was thrown out by, an LGBTQ judge. Who knew? Well, anyway, this fellow, Ike, I guess he gave $1,000 to the campaign for Proposition 8. He was thrown out of his job with the Mozilla people, Firefox people, because he had his own personal opinions on what constitutes civil rights or rights of any kind. So who has to be protected from whom? He was thrown out because of this. Well, we're going to show you another one. We got another DVD. Are we ready on that one, Josh? Are we ready to go? Let's take a look at this one. We'll come back.
A judge tells a Christian baker, you will make the cake, and religious freedom loses. What do we do next? This is the Citizen Link Report. Hi, I'm Stuart Shepard, along with Bruce Houseconect, who follows the courts for Focus on the Family. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Stuart.
Tell us about this decision about the baker. Who made the decision, and what does it mean? What's the impact?
Well, this involves a bakery up in Lakewood, Colorado, near Denver, who turned down the opportunity to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. Now, in Colorado, we have a marriage amendment that defines marriage as one man and one woman, so same-sex marriage is not permitted here. But they went to Massachusetts, got married, and they wanted a cake. This Christian baker said no, and the homosexual couple filed a complaint with the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. They were investigated. An administrative law judge was assigned to hear this case, and he found that the baker was guilty of violating a non-discrimination statute passed by the legislature in 2008 that prevents discrimination in places of business.
And we'll talk more about that in a bit. But first, just for folks who may not have been following this particular case, what's at issue here is making a unique, a one-of-a-kind cake for a very specific event, which means that the cake baker is not just mixing up a double-layer chocolate cake. He's making a creation. It's something special for a particular event. And based on his Christian beliefs, he said, I can't support that.
That's right. There are actually two First Amendment rights at play here. One is the freedom of religion, but also the freedom of speech, the right not to be compelled to present speech, whether it's symbolic speech or actual speech, in favor of something that you don't agree with. Baking a cake for a same-sex wedding that you don't agree with is compelled speech to this Christian baker. And so he's defending himself based on freedom of religion as well as freedom of speech.
Now, the folks on the other side of this issue say, now, you're misrepresenting this, because this is just like, they would say, what happened back in the 50s and 60s when it was the civil rights era and certain folks were not allowed to come into a restaurant at all. What's the difference?
Yes, back then in the 60s, the issue with public accommodations laws, which is what we're talking about here, had to do with large arenas of public entertainment, theaters, movie houses, public transportation, restaurants, any places, and hotels, places where people gather or want to engage in either food, entertainment, or sleep. That was what those first public accommodations laws dealt with. However, over the decades since then, they've kind of morphed into anyone who wanted to be on the list and was politically powerful enough to get their names on the list have been added, number one. Number two, the types of businesses have been expanded in about half the states beyond those public arenas and theaters and restaurants and trains and boats and planes to people who sell wedding cakes, photographers, you name it, any business out there. That's the type of law that Colorado and many other states have now.
And to make the distinction, the baker did not say, you can't come in my store. He didn't say, I won't sell you any cake. He said, I won't create that particular cake for that specific event. Birthday cake, no problem.
That's right. He specifically made that offer, too, as when he declined the opportunity to make the wedding cake. He said, I'll be happy to bake you a regular cake, cookies, anything, you name it, as long as it doesn't have to do with a same-sex wedding.
Now, let's talk about you talked about the anti-discrimination ordinance, as it's called. Let's be clear first. What is the official position? What is your point of view about those laws and ordinances? We don't really support them, do we?
Well, no, not since the original ones in the 60s that protected race and religion and sex from the things that were going on at that time. Because they've changed so much, they're really used as a club to further an agenda that is typically anti-Christian in many cases. That's what we're seeing today, in either terms of homosexual marriage and other pet topics of the left. We're seeing it used as a club over the head of Christians.
And one aspect of this thing that's fascinating, let's stipulate that, okay, that's the law, that's what it is, and we'll accept that. In that ordinance, in that law rather, it specifies religion as one of the protected classes, and then recently it added sexual orientation, gender identity. And in this case, you have one protected class, and the baker is in the Christian, the religious protected class. Guess who wins that one?
We're seeing that more and more, and all across the nation, homosexual rights activists and the politicians who support them have most often said, look, if there's a clash between religion and homosexual rights, the homosexual rights is going to win. Sorry, but that's the way it is. And that has been a major shift in American culture and American law over the last 40 years.
What happens next in this case, and what do we do next? What's the future for this whole thing?
Well, this decision by this administrative law judge will be sent to the full Civil Rights Commission, and they will either adopt it or reject it or modify it. And at that point, the loser, whoever it might be, and we assume at this point it would be the bakery owner, has the right to appeal to a regular court in the state of Colorado, and he can pursue that up to the Supreme Court of Colorado if he so desires.
All right. Bruce, as for people who run businesses and who are trying to make their way through this difficult terrain, what's your advice for them as we close out?
I think you have to almost get a mindset where you're willing to be forced to the ultimate choice of choosing between your faith and your business. The current state of politics in this country has forced Christians to that edge, and we may have to pay the ultimate price.
All right. Bruce, thanks for your insight.
Thanks, Stuart.
And thank you for watching. You may always write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. We'd like to hear what you think about this. Please write to us. Again, mail@citizenlink.com. And do pray for Christian business owners around the country who, one by one, are being hit by these challenges. And the way the courts are going, it's going to be a tough road over the next few years, the next decade or so, for businesses as more and more of them get challenged under these ordinances and laws that have been passed around the country. Remember to pray for them, pray for wisdom and strength. And remember, stand tall and be heard.
So there you have it. There's just one more example of the LGBTQ agenda. And I've spoken to you many times about the homosexual agenda, the gay agenda, however you want to portray it. There is an agenda. It is a well-documented agenda. In fact, I have information that I'm going to provide to some people who want it, where some of the agenda was read into the congressional record. So this is not something fabricated by Ralph Lillig. It is actually in the records of the United States of America. You know, I find it interesting, and hopefully you do. Who needs protection from whom? The loudest and most strident voices in this community for the last couple of years have been the LGBT, talking about all of the dire things that they supposedly have that are happening to them that have never happened in this city. Maybe some of them have happened elsewhere, although finding evidence of it in this state is nigh impossible. There may be something somewhere, but we haven't uncovered it yet. And yet, isn't it interesting that here in this city, I talk to people regularly who work for the university, work for the school district, work for the city government, the county government, who work in various private businesses that you and I frequent, that are scared to death to speak out on this this whole LGBT thing, not because they support it, not because they hate anybody, but they're afraid of retribution because the LGBT crowd are going after anybody. Take it from one who knows. And now they have Fair Pocatello that they're going to be putting tons of money and energy into trying to keep Proposition 1, keep the ordinance in place. And a reminder, vote yes on Proposition 1, May 20th. Yes means you want it out of here for the very reasons you just saw with this interview about that baker. But and you know, the homosexual issue is almost peripheral to the real issue, and that is, what are your rights as an American under the First Amendment, whether they're your property rights, your religious freedoms, your business ownership rights, your whatever they are as the parent of a family, guardian of the family and all that. What are your rights if you're not LGBT? Well, if they have it their way, you won't have any rights. This so-called, this non-discrimination ordinance literally takes your rights away from you to give them to this special group who think of themselves as special and that they should have special treatment at our expense, yours and mine. So who has to be afraid of whom? When was the last time you saw anybody thrown out of a restaurant because they were homosexual, thrown out of their apartment, in spite of one anecdote that was reported a year and a half ago? We have no evidence that it ever occurred, and I don't believe it did. That's me, and I've been negative on some things that I've been challenged on before, but until I see the paperwork saying this really happened, I don't believe it. Why should I? Everything we've seen so far, basically, from these folks has been a lie, one type of another. And now they have this HRC. HRC, I think that's it. It's a huge organization, huge. 1.5 million members, millions and millions of dollars, and they're going to put people in our community to get out and talk to you to try to persuade you to let this ordinance stay in place. And if you do, it's at your peril, it's at your risk, it's my risk, my peril. This ordinance is a travesty of our rights, and we must get rid of it. So vote yes on Proposition 1, May the 20th. I got an interesting letter to the editor. I thought it was very good, well written. I'm going to share it with you. This was from April 3rd, anti-discrimination, and I don't think it made it to the paper. I'm not really quite sure. I got it as an email, but if it didn't make it to the paper, it should. Is anti-discrimination promoting sexual harassment? Idaho's legislature is being hard-pressed by the LGBT movement for anti-discrimination laws based on sexual preferences. Anti-discrimination laws appear to open the door for legalized sexual harassment. Harassment is illegal when it is so frequent or severe that it creates a hostile or offensive work environment. Unfortunately, this does occur when the homosexual community feels empowered, like blocking the Capitol building. What will ISU do when guys claiming to be females show up in the women's locker rooms and showers, exposing themselves and openly gawking at the females? Evergreen College in Washington State has a problem because such a man flagrantly exposing himself in a public changing room for adolescent girls. Do we have laws against exposing oneself in public, referred to as flashing? I believe there are also laws against voyeurism. However, Evergreen College was helpless because of the anti-discrimination laws. We're headed toward a complete disregard of civil decency and propriety. This political movement began with recruitment of people to accept and participate in their non-standard lifestyles. It is disgraceful for our nation to abandon self-respect and decency by legalizing deviant behavior. Our neighborhoods, cities, states, and the whole nation are under siege from people bent on forcing us to accept their deviant lifestyles. Will we be victims of wholesale sexual harassment? What protection is there for those who are subject to sexual harassment? By allowing transgenders access to public restrooms, ISU is making a mockery of public decency. ISU added LGBT concerns to students' rights as quoted in the ISJ. Quote, "We want to be proactive and make sure everyone can expect a respectful environment to get an education or go to work. Sexual harassment is not a respectful environment, and it is certainly not decent." And that's by Terry Anderson in Pocatello. And I know Terry, he's a solid guy. And Terry, kudos, that's well said. I think we might have time. You know, every once in a while, in spite of all their efforts, I'm surprised that the Idaho State Journal kind of gets things right. I'm not sure. This was from yesterday's forum in the Idaho State Journal. And I realize some of you read it. I realize a lot of you don't read the paper. This is called Discrimination Cuts Both Ways. Following the forced ouster of Mozilla's chief executive officer, company chairwoman Mitchell Baker tried to explain the challenges of free speech. Quote, "Mozilla believes both in equality and freedom of speech," Baker said. "Equality is necessary for meaningful speech, and you need free speech to fight for equality. Figuring out how to stand for both at the same time can be hard." Yeah, if you don't have any center, I guess it could be real difficult. She's correct. It is difficult. And when we make the wrong decision, as her company did in essentially firing its CEO last week, we only create what we try to make extinct: more intolerance and discrimination. Despite the fact that Mozilla CEO and co-founder Brendan Eich was doing nothing illegal when he donated $1,000 to help California pass a gay marriage ban in 2008, that donation was essentially enough to force his ouster. The moment he was named CEO last month, pro-gay marriage groups tried to destroy him, or at least his career. Ike paid a heavy price because he exercised his constitutional rights and donated some money, about enough to buy a big screen TV, to a cause he supported. It didn't matter that Mozilla has a solid reputation for being a company that's accepting of gay, lesbian, and transgendered employees. In fact, that reputation might have hurt Ike in the end. Perhaps Mozilla felt that to uphold its status as an LGBT-friendly workshop, Ike had to go. The company was facing boycotts from pro-gay marriage groups, and the blogosphere had launched a virtual lynch mob against Ike. Now think of that. Boycotts. The pro-LGBT community, the victims, as we're always being told, who have been portraying themselves as the poor victims of everything, they're going to do a boycott of Mozilla because they don't like this guy and his feelings. They don't care about what he wants. It's what they want. Does it make them feel good? Let's squash this bug before he has anything further to say. Now, the man who developed JavaScript for the web is out as CEO. Is this turn of events a victory for anyone? Gay blogger Andrew Sullivan said there should be no rejoicing in forcing Ike to quit because it makes the gay community look as intolerant as the religious right. Really? You want to squander the real gains we've made by argument and engagement by becoming just as intolerant of others' views as the Christians? Sullivan asked. I love that little canard they throw in there. You've just found a great way to do this. It's a bad self-inflicted blow, and all of us will come to regret it. Ike's forced resignation could resonate in Pocatello, where residents will vote May 20th on whether to keep an anti-discrimination ordinance in place. The ordinance ensures LGBT rights and was narrowly passed last year by a divided city council. And I have to comment here that the divided city council included 3 city councilmen, and at one point, where the mayor had to step in as the tiebreaker, but the gentleman who made sure that we all got to live with this and that we would have the anger and the confusion and the discontent and the mess in this city was good old Steve Brown, City Councilman Steve Brown, who also, by the way, is the field deputy or field representative for Mike Simpson, and who also is I believe, a precinct committeeman on the Bannock County Pocatello, Bannock County Republican Central Committee. I guess he doesn't have enough things out there. He needs to own a couple more. So good old Steve Brown was the deciding vote on that and got us into the mess we're in now. It would be unfortunate if having an anti-discrimination ordinance is seen by Pocatellans as something that opens the door to an attitude of intolerance against those who take issue with gay marriage or personally don't agree with the LGBT lifestyle. We're all entitled to our own opinions, right? Well, if you're the tolerant LGBT, of course, but if you're the intolerant non-LGBT, you dare to have an opinion contrary to theirs? How dare you? We'll bring in outsiders and millions of dollars to force you to accept our lifestyle. Pocatello's ordinance says no one can be discriminated against based on sexual orientation, and we all have one, gay or straight. Oh, sexual orientation, okay. But Ike's resignation will fuel the argument that gay and transgendered people are looking for special rights. Indeed, that's what they are. They're not looking for them, they're demanding them, and they're getting them. The cry will be, look what happened to someone who made a financial contribution to fight the gay agenda 6 years ago. We should all feel discrimination is wrong, whether it's a transgendered person being denied services at a restaurant or when was the last time you saw that happen? Have you ever seen that happen? Neither have I. Even from Los Angeles, I never saw that happen. Being denied services at a restaurant, or a chief executive officer being booted for making a perfectly legal contribution to a cause he supports. Ike has talent and vision that would have greatly helped one of the world's most important internet companies. Now his personal right to back a political cause has cost him a future with Mozilla. The LGBT community has long championed that people should be judged by their abilities and not on their personal relationships or beliefs. Anything less is discrimination, or in the case of Ike, even bullying and coercion, and bullying and coercion. So there's your non-discrimination ordinance, and there's what the future holds for us right here in Pocatello if we allow this to stay on the books. And I tell you, I don't have the resources that Fair Pocatello has. I don't have the resources that HRC has. I don't have a Brenda Stanley, a well-known public figure, to stand up and promote the issue. I don't have an attorney to speak. I can only say, from mom and pop American, just regular guys like you and me, the intolerance of the LGBT community is indescribable. You have to get rid of this ordinance. So vote yes, May 20th. That about takes care of it for this week. God bless you. I'm sure glad you were able to join us. Don't forget this Friday at Marydale Park, 6 o'clock. Until next week, when we will hopefully have our special guest, Lawrence Denny. God bless you and yours. Keep the faith and be strong. Good night.